In this video, I will be reviewing the epidemiology of COVID-19, how the virus spreads. And this infection is primarily spread by respiratory secretions. Close contacts can inhale droplets associated with coughing, or the droplets can land on the face or on surfaces where they can survive for hours and even up to 3 days. Droplets usually do not project beyond 2 meters or 6 feet when someone speaks or coughs. However, a powerful sneeze can project droplets longer distances. Also, singing and certain procedures such as intubation can produce aerosols, fine moist particles of less than 10 microns that contain the virions and can remain in the air for up to 3 hours. Recent studies now find that asymptomatic or pre-symptomatic infected patients make up a very significant percentage of cases. On the Diamond Princess cruise ship, over 600 individuals were tested positive for COVID-19, and 18% were asymptomatic. Experienced epidemiologists estimate the range of asymptomatic cases to be 20 to 40%. Children and adolescents are more likely to have minimal symptoms. There are also several reports of super spreaders. One of the most notorious examples is Case 31 from South Korea. This 35-year-old Chinese woman traveled from Wuhan, China to Daegu, South Korea, where she visited a mega church twice as well as a hospital, and while febrile, ate at a buffet before she was diagnosed. Tracing determined that she had come in contact with 1,160 people. The virus can also be found in stool, but it is difficult to culture, and no cases of transmission by this route have been reported. To date, perinatal transmission has not been observed. Tracing studies reveal that an infected host can infect 2 to 2.5 others. This number is termed the R sub 0, and this virus is one of the most highly infectious agents we've experienced. However, measles with an R sub 0 of 10 is more infectious. The majority of cases are acquired by close contact with a symptomatic person. 1 to 5% of close contacts develop the disease. 80 to 85% of infections are contracted within the family, called family clusters. Other settings have included the megachurch in South Korea with over 1,200 cases, cruise ships, sporting events, and an entire Italian community. In the early phase of the epidemic in both China and Italy, a large portion of nosocomial transmissions occurred through contacts between clinicians and visitors with no or mild symptoms of COVID-19. Healthcare givers must be aware and remember Dr. Sisi. I'll be discussing how caregivers can protect themselves in the fourth video. When it comes to who is infected, this virus is an equal opportunity promoter. Everyone appears to be equally susceptible. Every age, including young children who may have mild symptoms and be interpreted as having another febrile illness, can be infected equally. Males and females are also infected with nearly the same frequency. Our understanding of how the virus infects humans, described in the first video, is supported by studies of viral counts in the nasopharynx and throat over time. Soon after being infected, before symptoms, as well as during the first 24 to 48 hours of symptoms, the viral counts are very high, and patients are most infectious. Some individuals shed virus for over 2 weeks. The outbreak in China began as a point source in the Hunan live animal and fish market, and the majority of cases were among market workers. However, within 10 days, the disease rapidly spread from person to person. Those who had never been in the market demonstrated early on that this virus was highly infectious. These maps document the rapid spread throughout China. Each 10-day interval documents spread outward from the city of Wuhan, where the market was located, in the entire Hubei province and progressing into the other eastern provinces. The infection quickly spread throughout the world as a consequence of Chinese citizens traveling to Europe, the U.S., and Australia. As shown on this map from the Center for Systems Science and Engineering at Johns Hopkins, as of April 2nd, there have been over 1 million cases and 51,000 deaths, a death rate of approximately 5.1%. Here are the epidemic curves for Hong Kong, South Korea, Japan, China, all of the European countries, including Italy and Spain, as well as the curve for the United States. Note the nearly flat curve for South Korea, pale blue, where rapid testing, contact tracing, and isolation and quarantines were instituted. Also notice the number of cases has dramatically dropped in China, the orange curve. Italy is now leveling off, black curve, as is Spain, medium blue curve. Finally, note the steep upward curve for the United States in red. Here is the U.S. map, also from the Center of Systems Science and Engineering. The size of the circle correlates with the number of cases. As of March 23rd, New York had the most cases with 10,674, but now 10 days later, that has increased to 47,000. And Seattle on March 23rd was a distant second with 1/10 the cases at 1,041. Their rate of infection increase has slowed, this region moving from second to fourth in the United States with 2,496 cases. In second place now is Chicago, which jumped from 805 to 5,152 in 10 days. And third is Los Angeles with 3,158, and New Orleans fifth with 2,270, and Miami sixth with 2,020. Because I practice in Florida, I closely followed the early outbreak. As you can see, cases were showing up everywhere in Florida, concentrated in the southeast, in Fort Lauderdale and the Miami areas. The epidemic curve on the right is obeying an exponential curve that shows that infected cases were doubling every 1.8 days. For the entire U.S., the doubling time is presently between 2.5 and 3 days. As of February 25th, the cases outside China have exceeded those within China. To summarize the content of this video, transmission is predominantly by droplets and contaminated surfaces. Rapid spread from person to person, it occurs predominantly in families, and less commonly the infection is spread in large gatherings and on cruise ships. The R sub 0 is 2 to 2.5. The epidemic began as a point source outbreak in a live animal and fish market in Hunan, China. As of April 2nd, the cases continue to rapidly increase worldwide with more than 1 million cases. Many countries are now experiencing exponential epidemic curves. Testing, case finding, and isolation are failing many healthcare systems, with the exceptions of China, Japan, South Korea, Singapore, and Hong Kong. After steep accelerations in Italy and Spain, these two countries are now flattening their epidemic curves.